Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I hope you and your family are well and safe. Today is Tuesday, August 11th of 2020, and it's 2 p.m. here in Sydney, Australia. Welcome back to another session of Octane Virtual Meetup, where we focus and talk about IBM Planning Analytics, which is also known as TM1. For those of you who are attending this session for the first time, I would like to let you know that we do these virtual meetup sessions every month. Today we'll be covering a very interesting topic, and this topic was selected based on many emails we received from the attendees of last meetup session. And today's topic is custom workflow for IBM Planning Analytics application. As usual, I would like to start the session and introduce myself. My name is Samir and I work for Octane Software Solution as a managing consultant here in Sydney, Australia. I have been working for Octane since 2016, and last week we celebrated Octane's 4th anniversary. I have been working with IBM Business Analytics Solutions since 2007. I'm a certified IBM Planning Analytics developer. Apart from being an architect for numerous large global projects, I have also been a project manager wherein I have managed both the on-site and the offshore resources. I have also managed upgrade projects for IBM Planning Analytics and migration from on-premises to cloud. My email is mentioned in the last line of this slide. Please feel free to shoot me an email in regards to today's session or anything related to IBM Planning Analytics, or even if there are any suggestions or topics you would like me to cover in the next meetup session. For the agenda, I have the following about Octane, who we are and what we do, and then we will jump into the main topic for today's session, which is custom workflow for IBM Planning Analytics application. And then finally, we will wrap up with the Q&A session at the end. Octane, who we are an IBM Gold partner. We have 6 offices, out of which 2 offices are in Australia and 4 in India. Octane's head office is based in Sydney, Australia. We have more than 40 certified IBM Planning Analytics consultants in our 6 offices, and together we have delivered more than 100 projects successfully. Octane, what we do, our 4 key areas of expertise are providing consulting, development, support, and training. Our offices in India has 24/7 support center wherein we manage our global clients all day, all year. We also provide virtual IBM Planning Analytics training sessions. Now let's get started with the main topic of today, custom workflow. So before I showcase the custom workflow, I just want to highlight that there is a tool called TM1 application, which is also known as TM1 contributor. You don't have to purchase a separate license for this as it comes with the TM1 software. If you like to have a simple workflow model for your TM1 application, then probably you can use this tool. With this tool, users can take ownership of the node, wherein other users can't edit until it's released. And it also locks the data after the user submits. As you can see from the screenshot on the left, you can have a hierarchy. And then based on the hierarchy, you can set up who should have access to which element. And there are different status for each template, from available to reserved, which means the user has got full control of the template. No other user can edit. Then there is a locked, which means the user has submitted. There is also incomplete and ready status as well. And it also gives you the full picture of who is the owner of the element or the node, who is the reviewer, and when was the last time they have committed. This tool uses Excel web sheets and also Cube Viewer and can be accessed using TM1 Web. As mentioned, I will not be covering this tool in my today's session. Rather, I'll be focusing on building our own custom workflow model within the IBM Planning Analytics application. Now let's start with a simple definition of what is a workflow. Workflows are the way people get work done. It could be illustrated as a series of steps that needs to be completed in a sequential order. For example, let's take a ticketing system where a user raises a ticket and then the ticket gets assigned to a developer. The developer will resolve the issue. The user will test the bug and will either reopen the ticket if they are not happy with the outcome, or they can pass the ticket. And then finally, the developer will close the ticket. Speaking about the ticketing system, I would like to share my experiences, which I faced probably 10 years ago. I used to work for a multi-billion-dollar firm here in Sydney as a T1 developer, and part of my job was to manage the support queries as well. So I was getting emails from multiple users. At the same time, I was getting phone calls to fix things in TM1. And I have seen instances where people will come to my desk and they'll say, okay, this is the issue, and they would like me to fix it. And sometimes I've also seen the users will let my colleagues or even my manager know, and then they will come and communicate to me. And sometimes even when I go to the kitchen for lunch, I've seen users asking me for issues with TM1 to fix it. Now, as you can see, I was getting queries from left, right, and center. I was thinking that there should be a better way to manage this. And I think that's the moment something struck me. I thought, why not we build a ticketing system using IBM Planning Analytics application. I had very busy days working on multiple projects during that time and supporting the users as well. So I used to spend late nights and weekends on building this ticketing system using TM1. I remember I told my manager as well about this, and he was very supportive about this idea. The reason I'm talking and sharing this experience is this will lead to our main topic, which is the custom workflow. Now, what I'll do is I'll quickly showcase the TM1 task logger. That is what I call, and then probably I'll jump into the next topic, which is the custom workflow. Okay, so this tool, when I build, I use of course, I use the TM1 cubes processors, but the front end I used was TM1 web. So for example, if a user gets any queries, they have to log into this portal. I'll just log in as an admin. And what you'll see in the first landing page is different status of their tickets. For example, the user, for example, I have logged in as admin. If this was a user, he can see instantly that there are 19 issues or tickets this user has raised. And the breakdown of that 19 tickets, as you can see, 2 are open, 3 has been assigned to the developer, 2 has been released to the UAT, which means the developer has fixed, and it's sitting with me to look into that. 2 I have reopened, which means I was not happy with the outcome of the ticket. 4 I have passed, and 7 tickets have been closed. Now, as you can see, this is a kind of a workflow where a ticket moves from different stages. So what I'll do is maybe I'll create a ticket, and I'll show how a ticket can be raised using this tool. So the user was given a very simple input template form wherein they can select these 5 different things. So for example, the user will come and select the environment. For example, let me select production. The project, let me select GL corporate. Now, if the user decides to click on this create button, that this model will not allow them to create a ticket. Let me click on this create button. It's prompting me, do you want to create? I'll say yes. And straight away, as you can see, it's popping up with a message saying unable to create a task due to the reasons highlighted in red, which is basically the user has to select the severity, and also the description needs to be typed in. So let me type in the severity as 1, and I'll put a description saying FX for August 2017 for USD invalid. And the most interesting thing here is the user can also attach the picture of the issue. For example, if I go to this location and I will drop a screenshot of the error, which is called fxerror.jpg. Now, if I make any file name error, for example, let me just type something like ABC, and if I try to create, it's going to throw me an error, unable to create a ticket, because it recognizes that file doesn't exist in that folder, which is called ABC. Now let me type the real name, which is fx_error.jpg. Now let me click on this create. So as you can see, when a user has clicked on the create button, a summary page comes out. Now in this, the user will know, okay, what is the ticket number was created. So this was automatically created within TM1 application, and it has been assigned a ticket number, which is 116. The status is open, and the environment is production, which is what the user has selected. The project is GL corporate. Severity is 1. And apart from that, you can also see the date it got created, which is today's 11th of August, who raised it, which is the administrator, the location of the user, which day the user has created, which is Tuesday, what time, and also the screenshot of the issue as well, and of course the description. Now, if I go to my inbox, okay. So as you can see, an email has come out. So this I could set up to send this email to the user, and also I can CC and BCC as well. But for now, I've just sent to myself. So the user will get this saying, okay, the same information what we have seen on this screen, the exact same message has been generated and sent to this user. So again, as you can see, all those information what we can see on this TM1 task logger, we can see as in a table format. Now, one thing to note here is the status. So the status currently says it's open, and also you can see here the attachment, which is the fxerror.jpg. So when I double click on that, I can see sorry, I think I'm not, for some reason it's not coming about. Anyway, so even the attachment what the user has attached to this ticket, it comes out with the email. Now, another thing to note here is this has come out in an HTML format. All the coloring, the table, the font color. Probably I will unfold how this can be done. So I think that will be the last part of this session, where I'm gonna go through all the bits and pieces what needs to be done to build something like this. Okay, moving back to the task logger. Now, once a user creates this, of course, he's gonna see things will change here. Now, as an administrator, when I log in, I will have access to this admin portal, whereas a user, when he clicks, he's gonna get a message saying no access to this portal. But because I am an administrator, I will have access to this. Now, in this admin portal, I have myself as an administrator, and I've also got another developer who works with me, whose name is John Nelson. So you can see here how many tickets has been assigned to myself and John, and how many are assigned all those different stages of the ticket. Now, there is also an unknown bucket. Whenever a user creates, it falls into that unknown bucket, and from there we assign it to either myself or to my team member. Now, let me select this template called assign a task. So the ticket which got created is number 116. So as you can see from this drop down, I should see 116 popped up, and I can see the user has all the information what the user has selected is in there. Now, as an administrator, I can assign this to my team member. If I have got more than 2, yes, I can select that. So I'm going to assign to from administrator to myself, and then I'll click on assign. Now, at that point, what happens is an email goes out to the user again. And this time you will see that the status of that ticket has now changed from open. Sorry, one sec. Okay, now we can see the status of ticket 116 has been changed to assign. Now, a few more things has been added to this, which is, okay, the date it got assigned, the time it got assigned, and to whom it got assigned to. So the user will see this information when a administrator assigns this ticket to the developer. Now, I don't want to go through the whole flow, but technically now what will happen is when the user fixes the issue, he will go to this release to UAT. So once the developer, he fixes the issue, he will go down and he'll say, okay, release to UAT. Then it will go to the user, and the user will basically select this template, change the status to pass or reopen. So when they click on that template, they will be either they can pass it or they can reopen. Pass means they are happy with that. Reopen means they're not happy with the outcome. Now, that can happen many times as well. So there is a separate template which captures all that information. That means if a user is not happy with 5 times or 10 times, all those information also gets recorded in this model. And then finally, the developer can close the ticket by going to this, and he can close the ticket. Now, every time this ticket moves from open to assign to release to reopen to pass to close, an email goes out to the user as well, and that way he can track. So this is a moment I think I realized, okay, if this can be done, a custom workflow can be done for task logger, why not it can be built for a budgeting and forecasting, because as we know, I think TM1 has got only one workflow application, which is called TM1 Contributor. But yes, it is a simple application to use. But if you want to have a custom way of managing your workflow, then you need to build something like this. So I think at that point I realized, yes, I think there are many ways which we can use a custom workflow in all our budgeting and forecasting models as well. So now probably I'll go into a real world example, and I'll log out from this model. And by the way, I think this task logger model, which I've worked, it comes in a separate instance as a standalone instance, and it can also be plugged into your existing TM1 instance as well very easily. Just a little bit of configuration, and then it's ready to use in any application. So if you like to know more about this task logger, then please contact me and we can discuss this further. Okay, now let me jump into another model. Now, when a user logs into this portal, so this is a sales forecast model. So as you can see, this is a TM1 web. So what you can see here is there is a world map. So this client had about 12 regions, north and south. So the north is in blue and the south is in orange buttons. And also, as you can see, all the users or all the regional managers, there are 12 regional managers, they all can see the status of other regions, whether they have submitted the sales forecast numbers, which is with a cross means they haven't submitted, and a tick means they have submitted. And also this template has got the security built in, where if I'm the regional manager 1, I can only click on this, I can access this, whereas all other these buttons, when I click, I'll get a message saying access denied. Now let's assume I am the sales regional manager 1, and I'm going to click on this R1. Right. Sorry. Sorry, I think let me. I'm not sure what happened there. Right. Okay, now we have come into R10, for example. Let's assume this was the regional manager 10, and he has come through into this template. Now, as you can see, all the locations which belongs to the R10 has come down under this. So let me select this, not Geelong. Now, when he selects this, you will notice that there are 5 sales categories for this, and the full year sales numbers for the last financial year is popped up. And also what we can see here is we have 12 months of data in there. The first 3 months of the actual, so that's why it's grayed out. And whereas the next 9 months are in yellow cells, which means the user has to key in. So the user is going to select each location one by one, and he's going to change the number. So for example, 688, he's going to make the change to 1000, and they click refresh, and that has gone inside this queue. Now, once let's assume he has done all the changes, they will click on the submission button. So when they click on the submission, they'll see this very high level numbers of sales categories on the left, actuals and budget, which is 3 months of actuals, 9 months of forecast. So we've got 20 million there. The budget for that financial year is 19 million. And then we also have some variances. Now, once this user is happy with this, he's gonna put some comments. So if the user clicks on the submit button, it's going to pop up and say commentary is mandatory. So it will not allow them to click. Sorry, it will not allow them to click on the submit button until they have put the comments. I'll just say sales okay for region. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the submit button. Now, when the user clicks on the submit button, 4 things will happen. So the first thing we will see here is the status of this. Sorry, the first thing we're going to see here is a pop-up message which says submitted. You should receive an email shortly. That's the first thing. A pop-up message comes out. The second thing to note here is the status has changed from not submitted to submitted. And the third thing we're going to see here is that the template, the input templates are now locked, which means the user will not be able to input any more numbers. And the fourth thing we will see here is when we go back to this landing page, we can see now the R10 has got a green tick, which means the user has submitted. Now, those are the four things which happened when the user clicked on that submit button. Now, at the same time, as I mentioned, there was an email has come out as well. So let me go back to my inbox. Okay, and also, as you can see, an email has come out saying, okay, the sales forecast for region 10 has been submitted, and the date and the time. And these are the 5 categories, and these were the numbers for regional 10. So as a proof, the user who has submitted, he has got the numbers. If in case tomorrow the number changes for some reason, which it shouldn't because it's locked, but for some reason the administrator has gone in and changed, the user has the numbers as a confirmation which he has agreed with the business. So it's good to have a confirmation and including the comment as well. So the user made the comment saying sales are okay for region 10 region or 10 region, and so the comment and the numbers has been recorded and sent to the user. Now what I'll do next is I just want to unpack this model and see what do we need to make this simple workflow model work. Okay, so some of the things which we need as a checklist I have got is we need a landing page with the workflow status, which is basically this. So we need a landing page like this, and we also need a kind of a submission or a status of the workflow, which user has submitted or which user hasn't submitted. We also need an input template. So that input template we need to build in a way that the users should be able to go and input the numbers. And we should have a submit button as well, and that is where the real magic happens. So as I've mentioned, the submit button, what I had in my demo did 4 things. Basically, we have to make sure that the confirmation pop-up message comes out to the user. The template gets locked. That means the user should not be able to input any more numbers. An email notification should come out with the confirmation that the user has submitted and the numbers as well. If needed, we can also capture the date, time, the values, and the comments what the user has keyed in. And we have to make sure that the workflow status, which is on the landing page, should change from not submitted to submitted. We should also have this reopen capabilities, which I have not got in this demo, but I think that's easy to build as well. Either the super user will have a template to open the template for region 10, or the reviewer where he can review the numbers. If he rejects, then the template should open up for the region 10 manager. And the most important thing of all this, we should have a functional spec. I think this model is very simple, as you can see. There are instances where you might need to have multiple hierarchies. Once a user submits, it needs to go to the reviewer, and the reviewer, once he says yes, it goes to the next level. So do you want to have that level of a workflow, or do you want to have the exact same replica model of the TM1 contributor, which I showed you in my earlier slide? So we have to make sure that we need to have the spec of what is that workflow should look like, how many users will use that. So if we can have that, then it becomes easy to go through this checklist and see what is needed for this. Okay, to start with, let's go with this landing page. I'm going to unfold this one by one and see what goes behind this whole workflow model. So let me first open this landing page and let's see what do we have in there. Right. So as I was using a TM1 web, I believe many people would have got a question, how did we manage to get an Australian map on this Excel file? Now, as you can see, this is just an image. So I can move this. So if you are in any part of the world, whether it's India or US, you can have that map embedded into the Excel, which is pretty easy to click on this insert and insert the image. And then what I've done here is these are all action buttons. So I'll place it back. So these are all action buttons. I have kept it on top of the image. So it looks like as if the image has the buttons are placed on top of those each stage. And so that's the first thing. So you can have an image and the action buttons on top of that to make it look like there are 12 regions. And as I said, I think blue is north and the south is in orange. Okay, that's the first thing. And if I right click on this R1, for example, there is an TM1 process. Right. So there is a TM1 process there. So basically it's running a process called this process name called PA2 access. And also to note here is there is if the process fails, I'm going to pass a message. So that has been done. And one more thing to showcase here is I have got this template which goes into the sales input template. Once the user has access to that R1 region, it will go to this sales input template. Now I have to make sure that I pass this R1, which is in this button, into the next sheet, which probably I'll show you when I go to the next one. So let me open this process, which is called PA2 access. And maybe I'll just scan through the code what is there, which makes it controls the access of the user. So, okay. So basically, as you can see, I've got 12 users, and each user is assigned to a specific group, which is basically R1 to R12. Now there are groups called North region and South region, which basically means North region. The user who belongs to North region will have access to all the North regions from R1 to R6. And the regional manager who is responsible for South, he will have access to all the regions from R7 to R12. And then there is an all regions as well, which the management or the CFO or the CEO, when they log in, they will be able to access all the regions. So if a user who is not part of any of these groups, then we should stop that user from accessing this portal. So which is where you can see here, the user should belong to a specific group, which is basically the particular region R1 to R12, or he should belong to North or South or all regions. So if any user doesn't belong to any of these 4 groups, which is this, then basically I'm saying, okay, you don't have access. Then I'm passing that message to a cube called TL validation. So basically it will look like this, as you can see. So when I clicked on that R1 or R2 button, a message came up, no access to R2. Contact the admin. So that message gets stored in this cube called TL validation. And then I'm saying process quit, which means the user should not have access to the sales input template. And then that's it. A very simple access process, which is basically checking if the user has access to any of the 12 regions and stop them if they don't. And if they have access, then it will take them to the sales input template. All right. So that is what is happening in this each of this action button, which is basically it's running that process called pa2.access, and it's checking the security of the user. Okay, now the next thing is how did we manage to get this? Which is basically, let me unhide this. Okay, so on the left, I have a cube called submission control. And now here we can see there are 12 regions, and for each region I have a 0 or 1. 0 means the user has not submitted, and 1 means he has submitted. And that is what is being listed here, 0 or 1. And then on the right side, I have got an if condition which says, okay, if it is 1, if the counter is 1, then basically I've just used the symbol from this Excel feature, and I've used this square root, so which looks like a tick. So if it is 1, then tick, which is a square root symbol, and if not, then I've just used an X. So that looks like, and then I applied a conditional formatting, which is basically within the home button, you can apply this conditional formatting. Whether if there is a square root, then it makes it green. If not, it comes out in this color. So that's how we can probably get this workflow status by having this special cube called submission control, which is a very simple because this model is being used on a month-to-month basis. So that's why we have a year and month, and the version it's using is a WIP, work in progress rolling forecast. And for 12 regions, we have the comments being recorded, and also the status, which is again, as I said, 0 and 1. 0 is not submitted, and 1 means it's submitted. So by using this these 3 cubes, Basically, these two cubes controls the access and the message, whereas this cube is used to control the workflow, whether the user has submitted yes or no. So just one more thing I want to highlight here is when the user clicked on this R1 and R2, if they don't have access, there was a pop-up message, and the reason how I got that message is I have set up the process error to show a. So when the process fails, I am saying S message. Now, if I go to this Excel and see what is that S message is, it's basically picking up the cube, the TL validation, and that is where we have that message stored. This cube, TL validation. So that's where I'm storing. So when a user clicks, the process stores that message in this cube, and then it displays a pop-up message saying you don't have access. So that's where we need to have a cube called something like this, a validation or a message cube, which should simply have the username, and you can have some dummy index and then a measure called message or error message to make it look like as if when the user clicks, he should know what the issue is. If you don't have this, it's still OK, but having a pop-up message gives an indication to the user that you don't have access to this portal. You have to contact the admin. Or else if simply having a process fail will definitely lead him to message or mail the developer and say, I've got a process failed message, can you check and look into that? But having a message like that makes it easy and stops him from even sending an email to the developer. Okay, now moving on to the next template, which is the input template. So input template is very straightforward. There is no mechanism sits inside. It's a simple slice report from one of the cubes. But one thing to note here is how did I manage to get the regions which belongs to, for example, R10. When I clicked on R10, it got me all the locations which were part of R10. So that's why I think when I was showing you this action button, there is a feature called advanced options. So in here, I'm passing, OK, this R1 needs to go into the next template, sales input template. And wherever I have a cell reference called S region, so this needs R1 needs to go in there. So when I go to the sales input template and click on S region, so now this R10 or R6, whichever region I select, it comes in. And then this will get this location when the user double clicks, the subset R10 gets refreshed. So let's assume if this template was R1. Let me change these to, so now currently it's R10, but let me change this to R1. And now if I double click on this, you will see before we saw R10, now you can see R1. So all the locations of R1 is now being listed here. So now the user will select one by one. So let me select, I'll say Malaga as one of the location. And as I think I put a conditional formatting here to make sure that the actuals are in grayed out, and whereas the forecast are in yellow color. And now the user can input this. It's a very simple slice report. There is no techniques or anything applied to this. And once they have finished this, they click on the submit button. So even this submit button takes the region which the user has selected from this template to the next template, which is what the next Excel file I'm going to open. So this is a third template. Once the user has completed the input template, I have got a summary. So this is not necessary that we need to have this summary page. We could simply have this submit button probably somewhere here itself. And we can ask the user to put the comments, which we have in here. And we could simply keep it in there. The reason why I have this third template is to give the user the ability to see all the locations. There are about 10 locations which rolls up to this particular region. So by having this high level summary report, he can quickly look into the high level numbers. And once he's happy, he can put the comments and then he can click on that submit button. Now, of all these three templates, the big magic or the locking, the email, all those things are based on this button called submit. Now behind this submit button, there is a process which takes all the parameters. What is the year, month, the comments, what the user is typing in, what is the status of that region, all those parameters is taking, and it's running this process. Now let me open that process and go through that process. How does it look? Okay. The first thing is simple things, or which cube, which version, and all those kind of global variables I'm recording there. Now, if you see here, the first thing I'm doing here is I'm making sure that I have an export file. Now, this process will also show you how did I manage to execute and send an email to the user, which is the HTML format. Now, how did that come out? So I'm going to walk through this and show you how that can be implemented as well. So as you can see, I have got a HTML export. I'm just defining a file called HTML export.txt. Now, the reason I've hard coded is just want to show you that we need to have a path. Now, this could come out from a system info cube as well. As you can see, I'm doing a few checks that the user should have. If the user has already submitted, then it should not allow the user to submit again. So it should throw a message saying, already submitted, please contact the admin for resubmission. So if this is already submitted, so just to show you, if I go back to the template, so if a user clicks the submit, and what happens when they click on the submit button again? Okay, if they try to click on submit again, it's gonna throw in a already submitted, please contact the admin. Now, how did we manage to get this kind of a message to the user is based on this line. If the status is already submitted, it should not allow the user to submit again. And also you can see here, if the comments are blank, I'm going to throw a message saying comments are mandatory. So please type a comment for the submit button to work. So those kind of validations I have put in there. Now the big part of this process, how did I manage to get the HTML formatting in that email is based on this. Here I can see I have got the full HTML code written in this TI process. So basically you can write HTML code. If you are good with that, you can go and write. But if you don't know HTML, I'll show you a quick way of how to generate this code in probably less than 10 seconds. I'll show you the quick way of doing that. But before that, I just want to show you what is happening here is, so I've got this HTML code, but if you see in between this HTML code, I have got my own wordings. Like for example, I want to have the heading of that email called sales forecast off. Then I'm passing this variable called S region. Then again, I'm passing some description here called submitted at, then I'm passing a variable. So within this HTML code, I'm passing my own variables to make sure those variables which are coming out of TM1 also gets displayed. If I keep scrolling down, I can see here, if I open this email, right. So we have this heading called sales category, forecast and budget. And if you see in my process, I've got the sales category, I've got the forecast, and I've got the budget as well. So those are my headings. And then what I'm doing is I've got 5 categories. I don't want to write the big piece of code 5 times. So what I'm doing is I'm just using a while condition to loop through those 5. And then probably I'll skip this one. I'll come back to that one. So basically I'm going to the sales queue and picking up the total sales value from that for the forecast number, and that is for the budget. So this is for budget and this is for the forecast. So I'm grabbing those 2 values for category 1, and then I'm printing that in this text file. So I'm doing this 5 times. So once I've completed that, basically I'm saying, okay, that's my final thing. I'm going to close this table, the body and the HTML, and then I have got a file called shtml. So this file will look something like this. Okay. So this is the file which will come out of that TI process. So as you can see, it has got the HTML code and it finishes with the HTML as well. And then here you can see the sales forecast of region 1. We have that information, and we also have, if I scroll on the right, you can see here the numbers. These are all coming from the TM1 cube, and this is based on the variables which I have passed. So I've used the HTML code, plus I have got the values from the cube, the sales cube, and I've got it in this HTML. So now I have an HTML, which HTML code plus the values coming out of the TM1 cube. Okay, now in the epilogue, this is where all the email settings needs to be done. For example, I have used my email ID. Now this can come out from the system info cube, and this could be a global email ID called support@yourcompanyname.com. The two should be stored somewhere in the user's attribute as their username. Every user will have a user ID. So if we go to the client's dimension, we can set up an attribute called username, first name, last name, his email address. So we can pull that to address from that user attribute. Then I've also got a subject for this TI, which is basically I'm saying, okay, TM1 workflow rolling forecast PL submission for that particular region. And then finally, I'm executing this statement, which is basically this VBS file. Probably I'll show you this one as well. Then I'm passing this, okay, the from email address, the to email address, the subject, the file name, which is basically this file name. So this is what it's triggering that email. And once that email is gone out, I'm saying to the user, okay, you have submitted. Now you should receive an email shortly. Now this is the message he gets when he clicks that submit button. Now again, this is the same technique as what we did for the landing page, where if the user doesn't have access to a particular region, then he gets a pop-up message. The same technique has been applied here as well. And then I've also used this submission control cube. Now this is where from 0 it becomes 1. So if it's 1, that means he has submitted. And also I'm storing the comments in the submission control cube. Now finally, what I'm doing here is I'm locking that version. So I'm saying read in the element version cube. So if I refresh this, so this has become so region 10 when I submitted. So from write, it became read. So this is where we can probably control the user. So this is a very simple model. But if you want to have more complicated model, I've got a slide. I'll show you. There are other ways as well, where we can have multiple hierarchies by which you can control the security as well. Now, as I said, I think the submit button did 4 things. An email went out to the user. A pop-up message went to the user as well. The submission control cube, the status changed from 0 to 1. And we have locked that version, which means the user will not be able to make any further edits to the template. Now, on top of that, I didn't mention the VBS file. So this is the VBS file which was triggered from the TI process. Let me open this one as well. So basically, it's a very small piece of code. You should be able to get this online as well, where all the information, what I'm passing, the from, to, subject, the body, all those things gets passed into this. And this is the script which triggers that email to the user. Okay, now probably the last thing I want to highlight is how did I manage to get this HTML code in this TI process, which going back to this. Now, how easy is it to get this code? Because as you know, I think there's a big piece of code being written here. So what I'll do is I'll copy this code, what I have got it from the TI process. Let me copy this. And then I will go to this browser and search for this thing called HTML editor. Now this is a good tool. So what it does is, I'll show you 2 things. One is, let me copy the piece of code which has come out of the TI process. And you can see on the left side, it's giving me the HTML format. So if you want to build your own TI process with a proper HTML code, instead of knowing how to build, so you can go to this tool and it will build the the code for you. Let me remove all these things. Now let me have a table in this. So I need a header, and then I need 5 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I need 1 more for the total. And as I did that, you can see the piece of code has been written for me. Now let me drag this. Okay, again, you can see the piece of code. Now the first thing I need here is I want to call this as sales category. As I type, you will see the piece of code on the right side being written for me. So this is forecast and this is my budget. Now, if you want to make this as bold, all those things, you can use this left side, and then on the right side, the code is being written for you. Now, what you can do is you can put the category 1 and put some values here, say maybe 1 here and maybe 2 here. Okay, the reason why I'm saying some values here. Let me just get this. Right. So what I've got here is I've got the heading sales category, which probably I'll make it bold. Right. And I've got the 5 categories. So now if I copy this and paste this in the TI process, it's going to work. The only thing I'm going to change here is wherever it says 1, I'm going to change this 1 to a variable called the S forecast value or something like that. So anyway, I'm not going to do it in this, but that's something you have to do it in the TI process. But this will give you at least 90% or maybe 95% of the code is ready for you. So if you copy this and if you go to the TI process, see, I can just remove all these things. And of course, I think we cannot have exact same thing. We just need to make sure that we put open the single code, close this, and then make sure that in between this, wherever we have this value 1, then we insert this as S forecast value, and wherever we have 2, we put this as S budget value, which is basically coming from these cubes. So if you want to have a very good looking HTML full formatting, I think probably I would say you can use this tool as a starting point. But if you know how to write this code, maybe you can ignore this tool and you can write straight in this TI process. I think in this VB scripts, which I was showing you, where is it? Okay. So, sorry. So this VB script, which I was showing you, if you want to extend this, we can also have CC as well, or even if you want BCC, even that information can be added as well. So if the regional manager 1 submits, we have to send this to the regional manager 1 because he's the one who submitted. But also I want to send to his manager, which is the north or the south manager. So if that needs to be done, then we can put a CC so that other users can also get this email notification. And if you want a BCC, which means we want to hide this user should not see to other users to whom we are sending, or it could be me or the developer who wants to check if the users have submitted, then we can also have this BCC. I think a slight tweak to this VBS script will make it work as well. Okay, a few more slides. So as you can see, just to summarize this, as you can see, the workflow will streamline the way users interact with the TML application. I think one of the good thing about this is an email notification, which basically is a confirmation for the users that they have submitted, and they have also got the numbers as an evidence, so that if anything changes in future, they always have that email as a proof. Then it also locks the users from making any further edits by, as we saw that piece of code, which we have used the element security cube from write to read, which will lock the user from making any further changes. And the landing page and the management can have the full visibility of which regional manager has submitted and who has not submitted. And that will also push the users to submit before the due date. So which is basically my next point, which pushes the user to submit the numbers before the cutoff date or the due date. So this of course, will assist the organizations in taking the right decisions well in advance. Because if you don't have a workflow model, then the users will take their own time and they will not even submit the numbers. So this will help having a system like this to pushing the users in submitting the numbers well in advance. So there is another technique which I have not used in this custom workflow, which is called data reservation. Now, with the help of this feature, you can configure exclusive write access to your region of a queue for individual users. So this is more for an advanced. So if you want to have a basic workflow, the techniques what I have used, I think that will work out really well. But if you want to have a bit more next level or an advanced level of workflow, you can use this technique called data reservation. I think this one also has the same thing. I think once reserved, the data cannot be edited by other users. Only that specific user will have the control of that particular element. I think, as I have mentioned in the last point, that it provides an alternative way instead of tweaking your tier 1 security cubes by using this data reservation technique. It controls a specific region of a cube instead of we playing around with this tier 1 security model. And with that, I just have another 5 minutes. I believe I'm happy to take your questions at this point. Yep, I can. Okay, I've got a few questions coming up as I can see. Someone is asking, okay, do you need a tier 1 license to use the tier 1 task logger? The answer is yes, because you're interacting with the tier 1 objects, you will need a tier 1 license to use the task logger. The next question I have got is, where is the attachment stored in tier 1 task logger? Just want to go back to this. I believe the question here is, when we created this ticket, I think I had the attachment. So this picture or the image is not stored in the tier 1. So what is stored in the tier 1 is basically the location, which is basically this task logger / attachment / the name of the file. So that path, the file path, gets stored in the tier 1, but the physical file that's in this folder, which is. So yes, of course, we need to have a shared path for all the users to drop their files. So yes, so tier 1 doesn't store the file, but rather the path of that file. The next question I have is, will this custom workflow work in IBM Planning Analytics workspace? Yes, so as you can see, the templates are built in Excel. We could simply drag a web sheet in workspace book, and it will work exactly the same way as tier 1 web. So all these are the templates what I've shown you. They all are Excel templates. So this Excel templates or the web sheets, we can simply drag them into workspace and it will work in workspace as well. Now the next question I have is it possible to have the web sheet link in the email notification so that the reviewer can click the link and it takes them straight to the report? Yes, of course you can do that. You can embed the web sheet link in the TI process. Maybe what I'll do is let me quickly show you how that can be possible. Is going back to this HTML editor. So what I'll do here is I'll say, so when a user submits, the reviewer should get the email and there should be a link for him to click, and that way he can click the link and it should take the reviewer straight to the template. So what I'll do here is I'll say click here to review, and this one I will insert a link. Now what link will take me to the template is there is another technique, which probably what I'll do is I'll just look for TM1 web URL. That's the first link. So this one has got all the information regarding how to have a web link for your TM1 web sheet. So I think this one. Okay. So to open a web sheet, probably this is an example. So what I'll do is I'll just simply copy this. So if it's your application folder, then it needs to go into the report and the report name. So I'll paste that in here. So let's assume that is the link for the sales input template, and I'll click OK. Now, so when we design this, we have to make sure that we keep this link at the last. That way, when we have this table, so this is a table which will have all the sales category one, the actuals, budget, and the forecast numbers. And when the user gets this email, they can see the numbers and they also get a link for the reviewer especially, so that when he gets that email, he can click on this. Basically, that will take them to this report. So we can make this link a dynamic as well, because if the reviewer is for R1, then it should be a different user, so he should not have access to R2. So that can be made, this link can be made as a dynamic. But the answer is yes, you can have a web sheet link embedded in the email notification. And I'll take one more question. I think okay, the last question I have is, if I have a folder with TM1 Excel reports in PDF files or Excel reports, will it be possible to use the email notification technique to send out the reports? I believe this is more towards the having this functionality. So if you have a slice report, and if you're going to use this print report option, which will basically burst the reports into a specific folder with all the reports in Excel or PDF. Now we can basically use the same email technique by which we can build a process, and we can schedule that to run, say, 4 a.m. in the morning, which will go to a specific location, pick up those Excel reports or PDF reports, and then it will send out to all the users. And that information can be stored in a TM1 cube, which user will receive which report and what's the user's email address is. So basically we can automate even this part as well. We can write a VB script. Say, for example, 2 o'clock in the morning, we want to update the sales queue. 3 o'clock, I want to burst this reports into Excel or PDF. And then at 4 o'clock, I can set up a process in TM1, which will basically pick up all these Excel reports or PDF files, and it will send out to those regional managers, so that by 4 o'clock, they have the reports in their inbox to view. So all those things can be automated as well. So yep, that's all I have, all the questions. So just to finish it off, I think thank you everyone for your presence. I hope the session was very productive and useful. Just a reminder that we have these virtual meetup sessions every month. I hope to see you all next month. Please be safe and take care of yourself and your close ones. Enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, bye-bye.